The examination hall stretched across 3 kilometers of sterile white corridors, carved into the heart of Station Zenith 9. 247 species had gathered for the Galactic Survival Assessment, a test administered once every stellar cycle to evaluate which civilizations deserved continued resource allocation from the consortium. Commander Jathik of the Vrin Collective watched the monitoring screens with 4 of her compound eyes, while the other 2 reviewed procedural documentation. In her 3 centuries of administering this examination, she had seen countless species fail. The test was brutally simple. Solve a planetary extinction scenario using only the tools and knowledge your species had developed. No outside help, no advanced technology beyond what you had already achieved. Pure problem solving under pressure. The human was in Chamber 47. Jathik had read the file on humanity multiple times, each reading leaving her more confused than the last. They were a paradox wrapped in contradictions, a species that had simultaneously invented weapons capable of destroying their own world and music capable of moving souls to tears. They had been spacefaring for barely 2 centuries, a cosmic eye blink, yet had already established colonies on 17 worlds, with a casualness that unnerved species who had taken millennia to achieve the same. The scenario loaded into Chamber 47 was Extinction Event Theta 9, a rogue planet on collision course with the test subject's homeworld, with exactly 4 months until impact. The simulation was based on a real event that had wiped out the Kelrath civilization 8,000 years ago. No species had ever successfully solved it. Jathik's translator implant crackled as the human's voice came through. Okay, so big. Rock, 4 months, everyone's probably freaking out, Lieutenant Commander Sarah Chen muttered to herself, floating in the zero-gravity simulation chamber. Do we get bonus points for style, or is this strictly pass-fail? The question wasn't directed at the proctors. The human didn't even know she was being monitored. She was simply talking to herself. A habit Jathik had noticed was common among humans during high-stress situations. Chen's hands moved across the holographic interface, pulling up the specifications of the approaching rogue planet. Mass, 1.4 times Earth standard. Velocity, 47 kilometers per second. Distance, 126 million kilometers and closing. Right, Chen said, cracking her knuckles. Can't blow it up, don't have enough nukes, and even if we did, we'd just get hit by a shotgun blast instead of a single bullet. Can't push it, not enough time to build engines strong enough. Jathik felt a familiar disappointment settling in. The human was following the same logical path as every other species. They would exhaust conventional options, panic, and fail. But then Chen smiled. However, she continued, her fingers dancing across the controls, we're not trying to move the planet. We're trying to change its trajectory, and we don't need to change it much, just enough to turn a direct hit into a near miss. She pulled up Earth's historical records, specifically from the early 21st century. Jathik leaned closer to her screens. The Yarkovsky effect, Chen explained to no one in particular. Thermal radiation pressure can alter an asteroid's orbit over time. Used to worry about this for asteroid defense. But a rogue planet? She grinned wider. That's just a really big asteroid with an attitude problem. The human began calculations that made Jathik's primary brain hurt. Chen was proposing to coat one entire hemisphere of the rogue planet with a reflective material, using every scrap of aluminum foil, reflective sheeting, and metallic compound humanity could manufacture in 4 months. Launch everything, Chen muttered, designing deployment patterns. Every rocket, every shuttle, every experimental spacecraft in every warehouse. Hell, strap engines to the International Space Station if we have to. We're going to turn this murder rock into a disco ball. The plan was insane. It would require humanity to convert its entire industrial capacity to producing reflective materials. It would need every spacefaring vessel, including unfinished prototypes and museum pieces. The margin for error was microscopic. It was also brilliant. By coating one hemisphere, the thermal radiation from the approaching sun would create uneven heating. The coated side would reflect heat while the dark side absorbed it. This temperature differential would create a tiny, but consistent thrust like a rocket engine powered by starlight itself. Over 4 months with precise calculations, it would be just enough to turn a planet killer into a near miss. But Chen wasn't finished. Now, since we're already mobilizing everything, she said, pulling up another screen, and since humans are psychologically weird and work better when we're being dramatic about it, she began drafting a global broadcast script. We tell everyone, every person on Earth, make it a species-wide project. Grandmas knitting reflective blankets, kids collecting aluminum cans, every nation, every corporation, every individual contributing. She programmed a scenario where artists would paint murals on the reflective sheets, where each nation would sign their section, where humanity would literally autograph the planet they were saving themselves from. Because if we're going to save the world, Chen said, finaling her submission with a flourish, we might as well make it the most beautiful act of defiance in human history. Style points matter. The simulation ran. 4 months compressed into 4 minutes. Thousands of launches. Millions of tons of reflective material. Billions of humans working in unprecedented coordination. The rogue planet's surface transformed into a glittering sphere, half mirror bright, half shadow dark. The trajectory shifted. 0.003 degrees, then 0.007. The adjustments were infinitesimal but constant. Impact countdown reached 0. The rogue planet missed Earth by 42,000 kilometers. Jothik stared at her screens in silence. In the chamber, Chen pumped her fist in zero gravity, spinning herself in a celebratory circle. Humanity passes, Jothik announced to the Administrative Council, her voice steady despite the shock. Classification, Tier 1 survival capability. On what grounds? Council member Thex demanded. They used unconventional. They solved the unsolvable, Jothik interrupted. And they did it with materials they already possessed, physics they already understood, and a level of species-wide coordination that most civilizations don't achieve until they've been spacefaring for millennia. She paused. Also, they made it beautiful. That counts for something. Later, when Chen was informed she had passed, she asked the question that would become infamous across the consortium. So did we get the bonus points? Jothik's translator, Implant, struggled with the human concept of a smile, but she managed it anyway. Yes, Lieutenant Commander, you did.